I'm just doing it now.
Start webinar, Rachel. Are we ready to go now?
Yeah, do you want to just, are you checking on, he's just checking on YouTube to make sure that.
I'm sure it is. It said I was.
So yeah, you can go for it.
Okay, here we go. Welcome. So this is the first in what we hope will be a series of webinars.
Recording in progress.
For children's gardening, which we've been so impressed by the uptake of interest in this one. There's 1,300 people have subscribed, and we have that list of emails which we're going to add. Actually, we plan a big follow-up to this with a newsletter. We've made a new newsletter which you can find on my website under the About tab, Future Gardeners, and on that you can subscribe to this newsletter. We shall send it out probably about monthly, but we really want to keep the ball rolling for the momentum which is growing behind this. And just a bit of housekeeping I need to do. I'll mention to those of you who hadn't heard that we're live streaming this on YouTube, and you can watch there if you want, make a comment. I'll probably leave that YouTube video up because we have a fantastic range of panelists today. I think you're going to hear some really, really top stuff, wonderful ideas. For everyone who has registered, we will send a link of this recording to you by email. So if you're not live at the moment, you will get that, and you can watch this at any time, and you can share it. And please do that, because it's going to be highly worthwhile for it. We invite comments and questions. There's a Q&A box at the bottom where you can add your questions, and Nicola, who's here, will be scanning through that and picking out the most exciting ones, and we'll then point to somebody amongst the panelists who can answer them. I think that's everything I need to say. Yeah, I just need to mention that this is actually our first time running a webinar and working with Zoom like this. So if there's a glitch, please forgive us. We'll get it on track pretty quick, but I reckon it's all going to flow. Now, that is everything I needed to say, I reckon. So there is actually one more thing I'll mention at this point. On my website, there's a new map. It's a worldwide map. And what we really would like is for all of you and many more people to enroll, register on it. You can do that by sending an email to Anna at charlesdowding.co.uk, and she will put you on the map, and you can then see yourself there. And you can also, having a look at the map, you might find some neighbors. It's a kind of no-dig map, and the idea is to link people practicing no-dig all over the world and get them together, because the strongest actions we can take are when we join together, and that builds an energy, and that's what I'm really hoping for from this webinar as well. So the map is there all the time. Please do enroll on it. Send an email to Anna, and I'll be looking at it occasionally. Actually, it's exciting to see we're building all over the world a fantastic network. So I reckon I'm ready to go. Our first speaker is Lara Honnor. I met her in 2017 when she rocked up in June one morning to work in my garden, and she stayed for the next 6 months helping out. We got to know each other pretty well. It was a great pleasure working with her, and she's passionate about no-dig, and then teaching, working with children has become her key focus. And she started Skool Beanz 2 or 3 years ago, and that's been also building really into something special. And she's now teaches courses actually for other people who want to learn from it. It's a plot on a primary school near Yeovil. That's not far from here, for example, in Somerset. And she's going to take us through. The club runs every Saturday from March to Christmas, with after school clubs during term time as well. So Lara, I'm going to bring you into the screen.
Right.
And Do I take myself out? I think I do. Here we go.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and share the Skool Beanz joy. Let's go. I am just sharing the. Can you see that? Can everybody? Yes. So, Skool Beanz is a gardening club that I run for children aged 4 to 13. And it's from our own no-dig allotment. It's actually allotment in our village, which is opposite a primary school. So it's separate to the school. We teach children how to grow vegetables and cut flowers and how to garden to help nature. And we do loads of upcycle arts and crafts, and most importantly, have fun. And it was Greta Thunberg who really inspired me. After working for Charles, I was studying for a diploma in social and therapeutic horticulture. And it's basically, it gives you lots of skills and tips on how to run a community garden. And I didn't know whether I should work with elderly people or, adults with learning differences. But Greta Thunberg and her Fridays for Future movement really inspired me. There were children, around the world standing up for our planet, and that really resonated with me. And with statistics like the UK, with just half of its biodiversity remaining as one of the most nature depleted countries in the world, and 1 in 6 children have a diagnosable mental health problem. It's no coincidence that the more we destroy our planet and the less time we spend in nature, the more we have this mental health crisis. And it then came to me, if we teach children gardening, not only is it improving their mental and physical well-being, it's helping our precious nature too. And so the same month that I finished the course, I contacted the school and said, could I start volunteering? And I started an after-school gardening club every Friday. And it was going from strength to strength. And then COVID happened. So I used the lockdowns to start raising money and selling plants on my plant stand, because I was going to create a children's garden. So these are the allotments in our village. This is what they look like for years. Only 2 of them were being used. They're quite badly managed by the council. And so I thought, right, if I take one on, I'm going to transform it into a garden, especially for children. And the local farmers were really supportive, giving me black plastic and free manure. I used my savings to buy compost, and using the no-dig method, this is how it went along. I only removed plastic and metal and rubbish. Everything else stayed on the plot to feed the soil. And yeah, all through January and February, the winter and rainy months, villagers came out to help me wheelbarrow, and I wanted to get the base of the garden ready for the children to start planting. And so that's what it was like, and this is what it looked like last summer. And I will never forget that first moment when I went to Charles's Garden at Homemakers. It was like entering another world. It was this magical place, something like out of a children's book. And that's what I wanted to create for the children every time they come to Skool Beanz. It's entering this sort of Alice in Wonderland magical world. And a big inspiration of mine is Ron Finley, the gangster gardener. I love all the color that he uses. He's based in LA. And so that got me, really wanting to recreate that. And this is a map of the Skool Beanz allotment now. So we've got 2 plots together. And I wanted to make lots of little areas for the children. So we've got the cut dahlias. We have workbenches in the middle, so they're surrounded by the garden. Lots of veg beds, water collecting station, muddy buddy compost heap, quiet wildlife garden. We've got a secret den and our polytunnel. And so the club began in April 2021 with just 4 children coming. So it's every Saturday. And by the end of the year, I had 18 children. And I had always had me and another adult, and some parents would help. And I ran it completely free. And then I only started charging last year. So I run the 2-hour club is £10 for 2 hours. Siblings go half price, children on pupil premium go free. And then in term time, I run after school clubs. I go and get the children from the school and bring them across, and extra holiday clubs. But I want to do this full time. And most importantly, at the start of the club, we always go through the ground rules. The children came up with these rules, and it keeps them safe. Things like, please respect nature and insects, always stay on the plot for your own safety. They know these rules inside out. And before the children arrive, I go around the allotment, see what jobs need doing, write them down. We have a little meeting, and then they pick and choose what they want to do and go off like little Oompa Loompas, and they go off and do the jobs. And yeah, this is the fruit and veg that we grow. And it's just been wonderful to see them become such natural gardeners. And dahlias are brilliant for children. You know, they cut buckets full with their, you know, children's scissors. They turn the petals into confetti. Nothing is wasted. Tulips in springtime, we love tulips. It's just wonderful how every season offers something. And gardening to help nature, you know, loads of pollinator friendly flowers. These are all the insects that we find at Skool Beanz. And we love a dead hedge because not only are they functional, but also they look beautiful and they're great for insects. And loads of upcycling, because when you're on a budget, it's so good to just, you know, use your imagination and turn anything into a plant pot, because you can put a hole in the bottom of it. We make jam deliers, so use jam jar lids, make great wind chimes. And bathtubs, oh, we love a bathtub. And local artists come and decorate them, and the children decorate signs. And this is our shed. So we use cuprinol outdoor paint and acrylic pens. A lovely Ukrainian lady volunteered, and she did that shed with her daughter. And we revamp our scarecrows every spring. And yeah, that's always fun. And Charles has taught me, oh my goodness, I'm obsessed with compost. We even have a compost club in our village in the churchyard. So we turn it into a game with the children's, and it means you can learn about it in the classroom too. Lissy, who was 6 years old, came up with the name Muddy Buddy. And our rainwater collecting station. So these are two 1,000 litre IBC containers. We built a roof so it collects the rainwater, because there's no water supply on the allotment. Now, my top gardening tips to inspire children: number one, do activities where the results are instant. Two, activate all the senses. Three, let children just be in the garden. And wheelbarrow rides always make the world a better place. So decorate a tin can vase and pick some flowers instant. And milk carton watering cans, younger children love that. When you plant bulbs, it can be a bit boring just putting compost on top. So put some violas and pansies on top, and then the tulips grow through. Same for the bathtubs. And activate the senses. So, you know, little ones love podding hard peas, and, you know, the crackle of the shells and the rattle of the peas. I always encourage the children to water each other in the summer, as well as the plants, holding slimy slugs. Happy hands. The children know if they get their hands dirty, it makes them happy because of the good soil bacteria releases serotonin in your brains. Feeding birds, and let children just be. So our quiet wildlife garden is a lovely place to be. We have our little pond, and we have a secret den, so 10 children can fit in there. And I never force the children to garden. Some children are not interested in gardening, but they'll still keep coming to Skool Beanz, because just sitting, doing your drawings, being surrounded by all the gardening that's going on is working its magic. And yeah, wheelbarrow rides at school. So if you're taking children to and from the, you know, the planting area, yeah, put them in the wheelbarrow. It makes it so fun. Polytunnel, oh my goodness, this is a game changer. So when it rains, it means we've got somewhere to shelter, and it's a classroom as well as a place where we propagate seedlings and also grow veg. Best vegetable seeds for children to sow themselves, all the big ones. So basically, if they drop them on the floor and they can pick them up, those are the seeds for children. Because all the smaller seeds, I think it's best for adults to sow them in seed trays, just like Charles teaches. And then they turn into lovely plug plants that the children can make holes with the dibber and just pop them in. Now, it's always good to turn everything into a game, but obviously the children have real respect for snails. We don't just turn them into toys, but yeah, you can do snail racing. If you want to find a snail, you've got to think like a snail. We do weed games, Witches Fingers League. Watch the film that we made with Charles on YouTube to find out more details about that. Our plant stand. So when the children pickle the veg, they put it on the plant stand, and then at the end of the session, they take it home with their parents. Any spare plants and veg, we've got an honesty tin and villagers can buy it. We have a community orchard, so a bit of land next to the allotments wasn't being used. So I got permission from the council. We got some trees donated. Here in Somerset, we do wassailing. So we bless the trees and ward off evil spirits. Children love that. And it's just becoming a really beautiful place. We scythe it with the community a few times a year. And yeah, we mulch around the tree. The trees are so healthy coming into their 3rd year. And we've turned one of the allotments into purely for sunflowers and pumpkins. So everybody comes to help sow the seeds. Then that happens and it's just lovely. And then pumpkin time is our most popular time of the year. We have a party, we guess the weight of the giant pumpkin. That was 48.9 kilos. We dress up as our favourite veg. And we had a storyteller last year who came. Now, quickly, the garden area, I teach gardening on a Friday there. We got some funding and we transformed it. And so this is my project for this year. So we're going to this is what it looks like right now. We're going to turn it into a cooking, food, eating and socializing plot. And I run adult courses. So I run them from March till October, so do come down, and those are our contact details. And yes, just if you're thinking of doing this, just do it, because we need these gardening clubs and children's gardens all over the country. And I'll just leave you there with my horticultural experience. So there you go.
Thank you, Lara. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. Right. So we are now going to
hang on,
I don't know why we okay, cool. We're now going to hear from Jess Creasey in
hang on a second, Charles.
Am I still on mute?
Yeah. Oh no, you're not. So click on here.
Sorry folks.
I'm sorry.
Jess Creasey, do you want to do it, Rachel?
Hi everyone. Sorry, I think we have a small delay there.
Yeah,
So
Jess is there.
Sorry, Jess.
Okay, Jess is there now.
Yeah, you're there.
She needs to unshare her screen.
Let me just say, Jess, I first met on a course here. She came on a weekend course last May, and it was such a pleasure to meet her. She is an incredible bundle of energy, doing so many things, working in quite a deprived area of North Cornwall in Bude, in the far west of England. And she's achieving amazing things there, working with the school and Stratton Primary School, creating a garden there. And she works for local tree surgeons. She's just doing many things all the time. So she's going to tell us her experience of gardening with children, and also about fundraising in particular. She's a genius for raising funds.
Could we just ask Lara to unshare your screen, please, Lara?
Ah, good.
Oh, so hi everyone. Yes, so I'm Jess from Cornwall Grows, and I came about designing and creating a school garden after COVID, just seeing that there was a need for children to kind of be able to express that disconnect that they felt outside. It was an idea I had when my daughter first started reception to create a school garden. But at that point in time, our wonderful school were making a beautiful project, a school track. And then after COVID, it was the right time to develop a garden. So we kind of had a lovely walk out together, me and the head teacher, and there was a plot of land already on the school that was not used. It was 8 foot high with brambles, buddleia and pampas grass. And we started the project with zero money and just the passion to like clear it. And our initial aim was just to have a small polytunnel and some veg beds. And as it coincided at the point that we started the project, there was some round of funding going around for schools. And I remember just the conversation I had with the head teacher was like, oh, there's this funding application. should we be cheeky and ask for 5,000? I said, no, let's ask for 10,000 because we're likely to get 5,000. But as it coincided, we actually got 10,000. So we actually had a small project suddenly became a bigger project, and actually we spent 10,000 just on the pony tunnel. So we have a huge pony tunnel the size of a classroom, so 32 foot by 24 foot, double doors either end, roll up ventilation, because at this point we're still coming out of COVID and everyone was all talking about ventilation for children. And we have it set up in such a way that it's fully accessible for children in wheelchairs, and raised beds inside the pony tunnel, and so that I can teach a full class of 30 children how to grow food all in one go. And so that project then developed, and the pony tunnel actually only went in last April. So we're still in our beginning stages of our project. And then from that project, we kind of saw the need that there was also a need in the community to teach gardening. So we then developed Cornwall Grows, which is a CIC. And then over the last 18 months, I have successfully raised 107,000 for community groups. So it's not all just for Cornwall Grows. An element of that has been just for the school, and an element of that has been for Cornwall Grows. But we're about £60,000 for Cornwall Grows now, and then some other community groups that I couldn't say no to, and I've helped them find some funding. So I kind of wanted to cover today my top tips on finding funding, because it's like my #1 question that I now get on Instagram. And do wave at me if I go over, Charles, because I'm quite passionate about this subject, as you know. So my top tips for looking at funding is your paperwork is key. So how you set up your group is what's really key. So do your research and have a look whether or not you want to be a not-for-profit, a CIC, a charity, or whether or not you want to be a business. And then once you've done that research, then make sure that all your background paperwork is in place. So let's use a not-for-profit as an example here. So you would need a constitution, committee members, a bank account, and your right policies in place. So I'm going to come back to the bank account because there's a very crucial point about bank accounts. So your constitution should always, sorry, my Instagram is blowing up. My phone is buzzing away, which is making me laugh. Correct paperwork. So constitution, your constitution is basically a document that basically sets out your aims and your goals, your passion, and it's kind of what should drive your group. It's also a document that you should review regularly and keep valid. And it's also a document that is the legality of the group. And CICs have their own form of this document, and so do charities, and so do businesses. Also, bank accounts. So this is my top tip about bank accounts. A lot of the groups that do approach me and ask me for help with funding have set up a little group. They've got the constitution, but they've accidentally set up an individual bank account rather than a charity bank account. And my top tip is, please don't do that, because that makes your journey difficult. So right from the get-go, go and set yourself up a correct community bank account. I'm not going to advise what bank I recommend. That is down to groups to go and research that. And that just makes everything flow so much easier. Correct policies in place. So do make sure you have safeguarding and environmental policies in place when you're setting up your group. And it does sound like it's a bit boring, but if you get all of this set up at the beginning, then this is key to getting grant funding. So committees, my top 2 tip for is committees and directors. So legally, you're looking at 3 people. My top tip is go for 5. 5 is just the golden number for committees. And you want to find people that are just as passionate as you, but also bring something new to the group. You don't want to all be just passionate about no dig, although we are all passionate about it. But you do want people that are, they've got passionates of wellness, or they're really good at financials. And do pick your committee members that are respectful, but are also not afraid to say no, because that's when true discussions happen. Timing. This is a lot my thing. A lot of people think that you can just go for funding straight away, but when you start a project, kind of in your mind almost needs to be a mini business. and you need to plan. And the golden number is a 6-year plan. A lot of grant funders are looking for a 5-year plan. So if you take a year to set up your group, then you've got 5 years. So if you're going for a lease of a land, try and take a 6-year lease out, because most grant funders, some of the big ones, will want to see at least a minimum of 5-year funding, a 5-year lease program. And then start small. That is like my top tip. I have a lot of people that come to me and ask or want to go for those really big funding pots. Those amazing funding pots are like £100,000, but they've never done a grant. So the top tip here is actually you want to, for your first couple of grants, you want to go for £1,000 or under. Start building up success stories of grants. And then once you're there, then you can start hitting the bigger grants. So Cornwall Grows has just successfully won a £39,000 grant. And my last top tip is love the no's as much as the yes. The no's in grants, you're going to get like 90% of your grant applications are probably going to be no's when you first start out, but love those because you learn from those and that's what's making you more successful. There we go.
Thank you, Lara. Wow, it was amazing. Really, I think so many people will find that useful. Brilliant tips.
Thank you, Jess.
Sorry, Jess. Yeah, okay. Yeah, superb. So now we're moving on to Phil. Phil is head teacher at a school in Lincolnshire, North Lincolnshire, and he has been running for quite a while projects working with children. And it actually echoes a bit of what Lara was just saying, sorry, Jess, about, making mistakes, or don't be afraid to assess your new capabilities. Yeah, I'll just hand over to Phil right now.
Thank you, Charles. Since this webinar started, I've actually changed one of my top tips, because as one head teacher to any other educators out there, I would say find a Jess to help you get the money and find a Lara to help organise your space, because I'm blown away by what they've demonstrated there, if I'm honest. So on to us then. So Bottisford, which is a suburb of Scunthorpe, and I've been the head teacher here since 2012. I've been interested in gardening pretty all of my educational career. At home, I have a good vegetable plot, or I think it's quite good anyway. I really enjoy being out in the garden. And throughout my career, I've found it quite frustrating that I've never really managed to get a really successful school garden. We've had moments of brilliance. In a previous school I worked in, we actually won an RHS award, but it wasn't very sustainable. You come back in 18 months and it's overgrown and staff have changed, something's changed, it's not quite the same, and it just doesn't seem to work long term. So this time I've tried something completely different, a different approach, and it seems to be working. And so going back to as I came into position in 2012, but in about 2017 as a school, we wanted to go down the outdoor learning route. We wanted to emphasize that much more. We started working on forest school principles, bushcraft, etc. And that became really embedded really quickly and very beneficial. So I wanted to look into organising a gardening space as well. The one thing that we did have was very early on in my headship here, I bought a polytunnel from Haygrove, which are a firm that I can recommend. The tunnel that you can see in the background there is actually 11 years old, and that's the original skin that came, a very robust piece of equipment. So we actually took this space on, which is very dull and uninspiring at that time. That was around 2017, as I said, and behind that is where the forest school was taking place. Very sadly for us at that time, that our chair of governors, as you can see on the sign there, David Thompson, passed away. He was a much loved and a wonderful person. And so we created the Thompson Garden in David's memory. So what we decided we want to do around 2020, I became really interested in your work, Charles, and I tried no dig at home. I had about 5 or 6 raised beds, and I tried one as a no dig as an experiment. It was absolutely transformed overnight. Well, not quite overnight, but over one season, I realized just the power of it. I was using a mantis tiller on everything, and I just stopped immediately. I just stopped digging. I didn't do anything special. I just stopped digging. And then I looked onto your principles of multi-sowing, etc., etc. And that it really did change my gardening experience. And what I decided was one year, it was over the Christmas break. It was 2022. I was ruminating over the fact that we can never seem to get the inertia going in school without having somebody such as a Lara to come in and take it over, just as the person actually delivering this. I found it quite tricky. So I did the negative brainstorming. You have to figure that's the class change buzzer. I did the negative brainstorming of all of the obstacles, such as who's going to water up in the summer, what happens if we've got reluctant members of staff, and all the other obstacles. And I thought them through and I brainstormed it, and I came up with what I hoped was a solution, and I ran with it. So the first thing that we did is we reorientated the beds. We tried to look at a homemaker style thing to emulate what you've done in your environment. The children did some maths work with trundle wheels, area and perimeter, and we made no-dig beds. The children loved covering them in compost, and we got going basically using very similar teachings to the things that you advocate. By the middle of spring, we were getting on with it. We were getting individual beds. We've got a bean frame there ready. We'd done taken on board your thoughts about succession sowing. So we've got lettuces there and beans ready to be transplanted in. And that was working quite well. We've got a reasonably healthy budget. Finance wasn't a massive issue. To some extent, I asked myself for the budget. So I'm thinking as a head teacher and SLT, that's one tip I would give to anybody wanting to start gardening in a school is befriend the SLT, get them on board. It's difficult if the SLT aren't on board, or and your board of governors, of course. So next we looked into, I did want to show the children that they need to also, as well as sustainability in terms of the environment and the garden, economic sustainability is important. So we looked at raising some money. We had an open day. There's the choir, lots of parents attended. And what we actually did was we aimed to generate enough money through seedlings. I know virtually nothing about flowers. So listening to Lara talk about flowers, apart from about marigolds, I think that's about as far as I can go. But some members of staff are quite interested in flowers, and they showed me and taught me. And whatever we sow extras for economic reasons, really. And we started to sell them. We've got a little shop on the playground as well. And there you can see we're selling tomato plants and courgettes, etc. But flowers were the one. On that day, we raised about £350 on just one little event on the day, which was great, we thought. So the economic side of it, we try and generate that into the school as into the children's consciousness as a skill. Now, the outcome of that day, what we actually wanted to do, we wanted to raise funds for a hot bin, and we are interested in composting. And basically what we're trying to do is recycle the food waste within school. Now, we have got a pallet bin system, but we're aware that the school dinners, meat, bread, etc., might be difficult in terms of rodents and pest control. So we developed the hot bin. We already had one. We wanted another one so that we can recycle it between the two, allow it to rest a bit longer, and generate an amount of compost, because using no-dig principles, well, all gardening, you need compost, don't you? So we've done that, which did work quite successfully, and we've actually got a separate composting area now. And what we do is we transfer the resting compost into the Daleks, ready to go onto the beds. We're not quite self-sufficient. In fact, we're a fair way off it. I made a schoolboy error when we set this up, and I didn't have the correct thickness of compost, really. I think I went for the replenishment rather than the starting depth. So what I've actually done is I've contacted, through our local council, a firm called Down to Earth Recycling, who actually take all of the waste product from households and they turn it into green manure. So I did another maths activity, and we've worked out we need about 2.5 cubic meters to cover our beds, and they are delivering some to us in February, which I'm really pleased to start a new season with a better covering of compost. So in terms of how the actual process works is I have a gardening club. One of the principles I've got is you have to be there regularly watching it because the garden can't be left. And so I use it as my well-being factor. I've got mobility issues, so I get the children to do everything. I do very little. I just supervise them and tell them what to do and point and say, pick that up, do that, do that. We do whatever the garden needs. We don't really look at learning objectives. We don't think about what we're trying to teach the children. What I'm trying to teach the children is make it work as if it's an allotment. So like Lara said, we do the same. We go out with the children, 5 or 6 children, in a pair of overalls and gloves. We've got a wonderful cabin, which is an outdoor classroom that we got through grant funding. And the children go out there and they work on the garden. I help them and direct them. They're thrilled there to see the first head of calabrace. The children do everything there. They are cleaning the polytunnel skin. They did a great job of doing that. So realistically, the things that I would take away, I would say, don't assume anything with the children. I've had children who don't appear to listen a great deal whilst we're going round. And I remember one of them, I got an email from a parent who said they've given such a terrific explanation of the composting process, the ratios of browns and greens and nitrogen and so on, and I was absolutely blown away because this child had said nothing and had been to gardening club for 6 weeks. I've also known children correct adults and say that's not broccoli, that's actually calabrace, which is wonderful. They're taking it all in. I've also known children have a watering can and try to water by they don't realize they've got to pour the water out of the spout. So I've tried to do it I have got 2 or 3 members of staff who work with me a little bit, but on the whole, it's myself and the children, and it's been wonderfully beneficial for all of the children and a great experience from. I'm really hoping that this time next year we'll still be going. For the first time I've gone through a winter, we've got leeks, we've got sprouts, we've got collet, we've got all manner of different vegetables still in the ground. And that's a first for me as a school leader and a leader of a gardening club. And I just want to say thank you to you, Charles, because it's your teachings that have actually got us there. So thank you. So that's exactly 10 minutes, I hope.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, Phil. That's wonderful. Really enjoyed
Thank
that. Every speaker, you're just giving so many useful insights. And we're going to get some more now from Sarah Allen-Jones, who runs Grow in Totteridge Academy, North London, Tottenham. And she does a lot more than that. She's wearing many hats. I think she's trying to lose 1 or 2 actually. But yeah, over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Charles. Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah. I'm one of the co-directors of a charity called Grow. I'm just going to share my screen to get going. Okay, can everybody see that? Great. So yes, Grow is a charity. We were set up 5 years ago, and we are based on land owned by a state secondary school. It's an academy. So we have 6 acres in total, and we run it as both a community farm and an educational hub. So I just wanted to start with, I'm aware that we're growing on a much bigger scale than lots of people might be talking about. And my background is as a professional organic farmer. So I just really want to say, don't be intimidated by the scale. We're a really ambitious charity and we've been going 5 years. What I wanted to get across is really more about our mindset and our approach and what we kind of call like the Grow way of thinking. And I think that's something that everybody can take away, no matter how small your space is, no matter what you're able to grow. So just to start with, this is a picture of our field when we first started. There's me on the left, and it was just grass. The next photo shows it last summer. So as you can see, it's a full working farm. We're growing a wide range of fruit and vegetables. So we kind of have 2 sides as an organisation. We are, as I say, a full working nature-friendly farm. We are growing for wholesale customers, restaurants. We run a small box scheme. We sell direct from our site, and we also supply our school canteen. the school is literally just next door to this field. So when you go into the car park, we're just at the end of the gates. And so we work really closely with the school. We have a partnership agreement with them, and we lease the land from them. And then we work really, really closely with the school in lots of ways. So the main thing that we do is we offer what's called curriculum support. So we say to any subject that they can come out and learn on the farm. And myself, and we have an education team as well, so that we have around 9 members of staff across farming and education. And we say that you can teach anything out on the farm if you're imaginative enough. And we see our role as kind of supporting teachers, enhancing the curriculum and giving them new ways of thinking about it. Because at the end of the day, everything comes back to food or farming or nature, no matter what subject it is. So we have food tech. That's quite a sort of obvious relationship. We have them come out once a term. In December, they were out making pizzas on our pizza oven. We have science out all the time. We do composting. They look at biodiversity. But we also are in talks at the minute with having modern foreign languages coming to do a vegetable stall in French. We have creative writing. We do nature treasure hunts, and then the students write pieces of creative writing from the point of view of an insect that they've learnt about. We even have maths coming out and doing Pythagoras theorem. And I always say that the reason I believe in the power of food and farming is because it touches everything. Food can be so many different things to so many people. So when you apply that to the education system, really the possibilities are endless. So we do curriculum support. We also do drop down. So we get referred children. As a charity working with our participants, we're focusing on children that are either pupil premium from families receiving free school meals or have SEN, which is special educational needs. So we've decided as our kind of mission to focus on children that don't normally access this kind of thing, because as I'm sure we're all aware, at the moment, nature-friendly food and nature is a privilege, and we believe that it should be accessible to everybody. So we've kind of specifically made that choice. So all of our programs are free. We fundraise them in different ways that I can talk about later if anybody's interested. And then when the children are coming out and learning with us, they're out with us with our facilitators for a full term, so 10 to 12 week blocks, and they're out for 2 hours at a time. And really they're learning from the seasons. So we have the farm team doing all the farming, growing food to sell, and then all of our learning opportunities really come from that. So I don't have time to go into it properly, but what we call our approach, agroecology. So this is what I'm talking about, this kind of mindset. And this is on our website if anybody wants to download, wearegrow.org, and I can share a link if it's helpful. So we made this as a teaching aid. So it's basically the 10 principles of agroecology, and it's a mindset. And the reason why we like this approach is because it's all about kind of being culturally specific and understanding the important role that food can play in people's lives, not just about nutrition, but also politically and representation and all sorts of things. So this is the approach that we try and teach to our participants. And it's basically just about understanding that everything is connected. Everything in nature is connected, as all of us as gardeners and growers know. And we believe that when you give young people the ability to see that, it's completely transformative. And then they can move from feeling, this is for children and adults as well, I would say everybody, they can move from feeling disconnected to nature and the world around us, which Grow believes is the kind of main reason why we're facing all these huge problems at the moment is disconnection from the natural world, to stepping into feeling part of the ecosystem. And we have seen over 5 years all of the amazing impacts that just feeling connected can have. And then we teach that through, sometimes when you talk like that, people can think it sounds a little bit kind of new age, a little bit hippie, but actually it's just science. It's just how ecosystems work. And when you're out on the farm in all seasons, you feel that. And that's really what we're trying to get across. It's that joy and deep sense of meaning and purpose that I'm sure so many people on this webinar know comes from spending time outside, because you feel your place in the world. So just a few sort of things that we've learned over the years about working with children. Then I'm going to talk very briefly about sort of working with schools, because I'm sure that lots of people are interested in that. So I would say understanding where your young people are coming from. Not everyone is going to come at it from the same place as you. You know, people have very different cultural relationships to food, to soil, even, you know. Oh, I can see some children walking behind me, sorry. You know, we have participants regularly who are terrified of worms. They've been told that soil is dirty and they think they're going to get in trouble to go home with dirty clothes. That's not wrong, it's a different approach. So we see, and we teach all our facilitators to be very aware of their relationship with food and nature, and working out through asking and being observant where your children are coming from and trying to bridge the gap. So one of our lessons we do to start with is just literally getting to know the soil, and we get young people to just practice touching soil and reflecting on how they find it, trying not to be judgmental, and just meeting children where they're at. The other thing we really encourage is modelling, which any teachers watching will know is, you know, leading by example. So we want to lead with an example of how joyful and amazing it is to be connected to nature. So we try and get all our participants to share that. And also being really organised. It's a boring one, but, you know, making sure you have planned into your sessions, your lessons, how long it's going to take to get 20 kids to put wellies on. You know, how you're going to organise your wellies, how you're going to get them to all put their gloves back in pairs, and making sure that they're not going home with them. Like, all the boring things like that mean that you get more time to spend doing the fun stuff. Yeah, and then I just wanted to talk a bit about some of the lessons that we do. So these are just some pictures of some of our young people. Should say also that we work with primary right up to 25. So what we're trying to do is kind of create like a pathway of learning where you can come to us. We have after school clubs, we have holiday clubs, and then we have school trips as well. So we are mainly working with secondary age. And then, yeah, these are some pictures of some of our sessions. So Jackson in the middle holding the big leek has just completed what is my favourite lesson at Grow, which we call the food zones lesson, sorry, the food miles lesson. We asked the facilitators to go to any regular supermarket that we think our children would shop at, and find 3 examples of veg from the furthest ends of the globe that they can find. So we'll often get green beans from Kenya, we'll get asparagus from Peru, and we try and get them to find veg that we're growing on the farm at the same time. The children calculate the food miles of how long those have taken to get to us. Then they come out to the farm, they find the equivalent vegetables on the farm, they get their trundle wheels out. The trundle wheels are such a great tool for getting kids involved, and they take it to the school canteen. So I should have said also, sorry, that we supply the school canteen. So veg from the farm is going straight onto our children's plates. So they take the veg to the canteen, they present it to the chef, and then they calculate the difference. Then we do a taste test. And it's a really good example of learning by doing. So we're not, we don't see our role as being judgmental and saying like, you shouldn't be shopping in Lidl, you know, this is so bad for the world. We're just presenting the facts of, you know, here's something grown 10,000 miles away, here's something that's grown 278 meters away. Let's discuss that.
Sarah, thank you so much. We've run out of time, I'm afraid.
That's okay, sorry.
Add anything to the newsletter that we're going to send out, or the email that you wanted to say? So thank you very much. That's really inspiring. And from Sarah, whose project is well underway, we're now going to hear from Dan, who's working at a school on the other side of London. And Dan's project is just beginning. He arrived at Homemakers last August. I'd never met him before. He turned up on a bike and stayed for 3 weeks. We had a great time. He's a chef, professional chef, so we ate really well while he was here. Thank you, Dan. And he's now going to tell us about his experiences as a chef and now starting a garden in Streatham.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you for that. I'm just going to share my screen as well. Yeah, so I am way further closer to the start of this project than most of the people here. In fact, we actually don't even have the compost that we need yet, but it's been ordered. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit, I guess, about the things that we've done, the challenges that we've come up against, and the things that I've been doing just to prepare for this initial venture into food growing in a school, as a community food project, really. So the first things that we had to work out when we realized that this is what we were going to be doing was, what does the area look like? So the space that we've got at the school is, at the minute, it's very boggy. We've got lots of slopes. It was really overgrown. We've got one area with fruit trees. So you've got to work out where you're going to put your beds and things like that. And what are we going to do about the bog? And we're going to turn that into a pond, I hope, eventually. We also calculated the size of the space that we can grow in. And I'll show you a little bit about that. So I've got a sort of a map, a planned map of the space as well. And yeah, budget wise, we're quite lucky. So I'm obviously a chef at the school, and we do every 2 weeks, we do a deli sale. And that raises funds for us. We also get backing from the school as well. Things from the tools that we have, we're part of a forest school, so we do actually have some tools, but working out what are we going to need and when we're going to need them was an issue that we're currently solving. And water source as well, that was a big issue for us, because we're about 150 meters away from a water source. So through calling different horticultural companies and posing the questions to them, it ended up putting us on track to get a water pump and IBC tanks, which is how we've solved our problems, actually. One of the ways that we thought about how we were going to approach our project, and my advice, I guess, for people was to come up with the aims, what we wanted to achieve and the impact we want to make and who the project's for. By answering those initial questions, it led us on to sort of more specific objectives that became actual actionable tasks, and were manageable for us. So things like building a community, increasing knowledge around food. We want to provide a therapeutic space and reduce stress and increase access and support for marginalised groups, essentially, at the school. So we're based in Streatham in South London as well. So we've got a lot of kids who are getting free school meals, kids who don't have access to gardens. So a lot of it was about focusing on those children as well. And sorry, I don't know if that's. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So what we did as well was, I held meetings when we sort of gone through all of these issues and got to where we were. I held meetings with the students and teachers and parents, and we got an idea of what people had grown before, what they wanted to grow. We did questionnaires and surveys, and that also gave us an idea of who we could rely on and who was going to help us from the community when we really got started, because we knew that this was going to be a big task. And at the minute, I'm the only one doing it, really. And it's mostly been in my free time as well. So working out all those things, who's gonna help you, how much time you're gonna have to do it, and how much money you're gonna have. These are all really important things to work out before you start, I think, and that's what's helped me prepare for it so far. And then this is like a small plan that I made just after I left Charles's farm last summer, which was really inspiring for me. I was in school holidays, so I was able to take time off and go and do that. And building a plan really helped to get it out on paper, so it wasn't something that you're always thinking about where you're going to put stuff. Just by getting it down on paper really helped for for me to be able to move on to the next questions and the next bits. It also just helps to have a guide that you can refer back to. I found, so yeah, we've got the bog in the middle, we've got up at the top right, we have sort of the forest garden area, and outdoor learning centre is something that we're hoping to build at some point. I'm just currently doing a woodworking course as well, so that I can use those skills to build the space as well. And we've decided, in terms on the left hand side where you can see flowers, herbs, tea, biology, maths, is where we're going to have raised beds, and we're hoping to incorporate lessons into that. This is sort of a big plan, and we're hoping to have sort of an outdoor kitchen as well. We did the things like building a 5-year plan and things like that. So, but at the minute we're still very, very early on as well. So one of the ways that I found with me with this project going into its first growing season, doing things like really sort of over planning. Maybe it's not over planning actually, but planning what's going to grow where, what varieties you're going to grow, what flowers are going to go at the end of each bed, just helps sort of ease that anxiety around the growing season that you might face as well, and just helps prepare you. And these are all the sort of tables and charts that I've done as well around different varieties, so I can look back at it, and things around sowing dates, transplant dates, harvest dates, all likely to change, but hoping that this gives us enough help so that we can grow through the year with confidence as well. And yeah, some of the advice that I would give people after doing this for about 8 months so far is to reach out to people who inspire you. I reached out to Lara about a year ago and went to visit her to see what she'd been doing, because it blew me away what her project had become. And understanding your aims and objectives and letting them guide you through the process, and being realistic about the support that you're going to receive, and getting to know the space and not to rush it. The growing season's coming up. Maybe you need to take this first year to grow yourself and figure that out at first before jumping into it too fast. And yeah, asking for help and sharing knowledge always is a beautiful way to do your project, I think.
Very much really nice to hear from someone starting out and not feel too intimidated by what's to do. You've laid it out very nicely. And we're going to finish now with somebody who's been running projects for a long time, several years in Norfolk. And Matt Willer is a guy of no mean achievements who's working with 30 secondary schools across Norfolk. He's in the secondary age range. And he won the RHS Schools Award in 2018. He's been at this for quite a long time. And then he also, believe it or not, this year in January, he was nominated for the British Empire Medal, MEB or MBE, in the New Year's Honours List. So Matt is someone recognised already, but he's incredibly down-to-earth guy. And he's now going to share what he's been up to and inspire you with that.
That's lovely. Charles, thank you so much. And I just wanted to very quickly say, it's just so nice to be around really positive and like-minded adults. And if only we could all run the Department of Education, I just think that would be absolutely fantastic and a step in the right direction. So really inspiring to listen to all these amazing people. And thank you so much, Charles, for the amazing opportunity to share my story, share my experience. So yeah, I'll start really about the Papillon project, and I'll try and be as clear and as quick as I can. So Charles says, we're a charity that supports secondary schools, sixth form colleges, and also pupil referral units here in the county of Norfolk. Absolutely same sort of objective as lots of the organisations and people. We're trying to inspire young people to grow food for their school and indeed their community. And we also try and get secondary schools in particular to see these projects as a whole school facility that the whole school can use. yes, it's about a lunchtime club and after school club, but there is many different ways, as you've heard from the amazing speakers today, of how schools can really think outside the box and engage all manner of young people in their projects in all different ways. But ultimately for us, it's about making young people feel more confident about themselves for a whole plethora of reasons, you know, from eco-anxiety to mental health problems, because they're having a bad day. As we all know, being outside is incredibly good for our well-being. And being a former secondary school teacher myself, when I had a nice pair of trousers and a much smarter haircut, since I let myself go since then, I know how difficult schools can be for young people. So being outside is just incredibly good. And it's also very much a very human experience. And we call the Papillon Project, connotations of a lot of our work, as you can understand, is transformative, transforming lives, like the cocoon and butterfly. We're kind of coined Papillon because of the book and the film, which is all about escapism and freedom and offering, you know, opportunities for young people to enjoy some time away from the indoor classroom. So as Charles says, we work with over 30 secondary schools, 6 form colleges, and also pupil referral units across the county. So we are, you know, I'm very much an allotment nomad, which is very, you know, can be quite challenging at times. And I'll come to how we are able to work with that many schools on a very, very small budget. And I'm really keen to share that experience with you. And I don't have an electronic helicopter that gets me around the county. So that I really have a nice solution to share with you how this can be done. This is kind of where my story starts. Now, just before I start here, this is when I was employed as a secondary school teacher. But before then, to get to this point and get to the point when I thought, do you know what, I really want to inspire the young people I've been given the responsibility of teaching with. You know, I had a really lovely granddad who inspired me, had a lovely dad who still have a lovely dad who inspired me. The school I went to, funded by the county council, also had a really successful working farm. And then I had a local allotment that I went to. So what I'm trying to communicate here is I had a succession of really positive experiences, which then led me to where I am now. And I just think when you're working with young people, certainly from our point of view, that is the #1 goal, not to make it too difficult, as some of the other speakers have said. Make it engaging, make it fun and inspirational, so they will remember that experience and hopefully get growing when they reach adulthood. So that's how I got to this point. And what you see in front of you is what the project at Reefham, which is the very first project I took on, looked like in February 2015. Unfortunately, that is a classic scene in secondary school projects, because secondary schools are hopelessly busy. They just don't have time. There's some inspiration from a teacher, but if that teacher moves on, sadly, the project dies. So we recognized this when we created the charity. So back in February 2015, I turned up here and they said, Matt, I hear what you want to do. You want to create allotment, go for it. Someone's tried before, you might as well try. So me and two sixth formers, I always say 2 sixth formers because actually one of them was a bit hungover and didn't really help much. They kind of like slumped on the bank and weren't too positive, but they were there. That's all that counts. Long story short, big things have small beginnings. Like with all our projects, big things have small beginnings. And in a very short amount of time, we absolutely transformed that obsolete area of the school playing field into what is a really inspirational and nationally recognized project. But it's important for me to communicate at this point, I did not do all that by myself. The key to that, and indeed the key to our charitable work, is, and I'm going to use this buzzword quite a lot in the short time that I have, not only growing enthusiasm, growing inspiration, growing help from the community is absolutely paramount to making something go from very insignificant to something that says wow and inspires everybody, and most importantly the young people themselves. And that's kind of the project from the air, and it's still running today. In fact, it runs without me, which is absolutely the whole idea, and there were some sessions happening there today. So the project is very, very large, and again, like Sarah said, you know, not to kind of overwhelm people, and just because it's big doesn't mean it's better than any other project. We just ran with it, and it grew and grew and grew and grew. I was secretly nominated for this RHS award, which I had no idea existed. And like we're trying to boost confidence of young people, that was the moment that gave me the confidence and perhaps the naivety to leave school teaching to embark in creating a charity to help other schools across the county. Now, one thing I'd like to pause before I move on is just to be clear, it was the allotment project at this one school, which was very much the pilot project, which then inspired me and others to create the charity. So with the allotment project, as I said, I started off by myself, but it grew and grew and grew. One thing I'd also like to share is how I didn't realise how much the young people actually enjoyed escaping from the indoor lessons and enjoyed the time outside. I actually thought it would start off by a couple of children growing things, but the children wanted to come, which is the most important thing. I certainly have learned over the years about the correct way to talk to children. I know there's some very experienced people on the panel today, but I just believe there's a very correct way you speak to children and engage them and value them and celebrate them. And if you don't get that one right, you may as well not bother. It's all about communicating well, making children feel a sense of worth, and that's how you get them back. And they enjoy their time because they've been respected by another adult. No straight lines. Loads of our projects, as you'll see with some of the examples, are incredibly wibbly wobbly. Some of the beds are incredibly wonky. Some of them have definitely not used a ruler. Does it really matter? I'm not convinced it does, because what matters is that the young people did it and they think, do you know what? I'm proud of what I achieved. I'm sure they'll get better at it when they're in adulthood. So wibbly wobbly, absolutely. And of course, as we all know, nature doesn't have straight lines as well. The biggest thing I'd also share, as I've mentioned before, and I mentioned again, is growing help, the power of community. You just never know who's going to come and help your project and what ideas they're going to bring, because I certainly have not got all the ideas. I'll be very honest, I certainly made lots of mistakes in the past, like I think I made some good decisions, but it's the other adults that you surround yourself with that enrich a project. And often children who have a lovely time, they then volunteer their own parents, and you have no idea what skill set they're going to have and enrich the project. And that's how the allotment project grew, by the community. Location is also very important when starting a new project. And again, I've seen where projects are too close to the school, but sometimes too far away, that the young people can't be bothered to walk that distance. So it's about the right location is very, very important. So we certainly don't have time to talk about all 30 projects, but I just have a couple of slides to show you for some really inspiring projects to show you now what the charity does. So to be clear, this is now with the Papillon project. So we turn up in the school, target these forgotten areas, and then with the help of the community, we transform them into inspirational allotments. And at this point, I'd like to say that almost everything at this allotment was built with a shoestring budget. We actually didn't use any money at all because we're upcycling. We're using things that end up in skips, in hedges. Even the polytunnel there is quite an unusual size because it wasn't a polytunnel. It was a former cricket bowling cage that we upcycled. Now, when you're working with young people, the whole point is that it's fun, it's engaging, growing things out of toilets, growing things out of baths, absolutely. But it means when, particularly wooden pallets, great example. When young people see you using wooden pallets, they think, do you know what? I can do that too. It's inexpensive. I've seen how you do it. I can do that too. And that's all about making it accessible and engaging for young people. And everybody laughs when you're growing rhubarb or potatoes out of toilets. It's just that sort of funny thing. Another example here in Norwich, sometimes a bit daunting, where to begin, but bring other people in to help you plan that project. And here we are, using upcycled materials, old school tables for frames for things to grow up. I had to share with you this, and not my idea. Just to be clear, this is an idea from another adult, which is the whole idea. Growing runner beans up Harris fencing. It's just fantastic. They're always in skips and it really works. And more importantly, you're engaging that with young people. Here at that project as well, we've got individual beds made from old roof tiles, old tables, and the children have their individual bed where they grow food for their families and they take it home. A very recent project, which I'm going to tomorrow, using Charles's method of no dig. This is especially helpful when working with young people because removing the turf is quite backbreaking work. And as we all know, it's just not the great thing to do. But when as a way of working with young people, it's instant beds, isn't it? So even when you're working with sixth formers, it's just an instant way of saying, wow, I created that. And it's a really easy thing to build with young people. So we obviously really recommend that. And here they are, young people planting things in their new growing bed, lazy bed, of course. Why is this important? Just to finish, I'm talking to the converted. They're learning very important life skills that they'll remember forever. But as I said, it's about creating that positive experience, making them feel a sense of worth and value. Upcycling is important, not only for the environment, because it's cheap, it's going to save you money as long as the materials used are safe and suitable. There are definitely things you shouldn't use, so you need to think about that. But more importantly, you're engaging young people. When they see you making furniture out of wooden pallets, they think, I can do that too. And that's the whole point. I think Lara had some amazing ideas about signage, and I completely agree with her on that one. Signage is really important because you don't want small little things that children can't see. You want big things that very clearly say, this is what's growing here, because sometimes the children don't have any clues. And again, I don't really need to speak more about this one, why it's good for the environment. But the biggest thing, just to finish on, you might as well not do any of that if you just can't make it sustainable. And the way to do that without having £1 million is to grow your own help from the community. I cannot stress that enough. And that's how we're able to work with all these schools in this county, because most of those projects have local volunteers who come in on a regular basis. So myself and charity staff can be nomadic people working around these other projects. Grow your own help, creating that shared responsibility as well. Really recommend, if you're interested in watching our charity film, No Straight Lines. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Matt, that was brilliant. Gosh, I'm blown away myself, actually. I've really enjoyed all these presentations. What a team we've had. And we've got tons of questions. So we're now going to go straight in there. Nicola's pointing a question to me. And the first one is for Lara. It's from Beth Rochford. You've inspired me so much, Lara. What is the minimum training do you think I would need to set up my own kids club? I've been gardening for years, volunteer at Hampton Court Palace Garden, have a great plot with permission for kids to come. I plan to totally renovate with all your inspo, just taking RHS level 2 after a career change, 15 years in corporate London. So what do you reckon, Lara?
Sorry, so what was I didn't quite hear all of that.
What's the minimum training?
Yeah, she's asking.
What's the minimum training? So yes, so I did actually put a list of my horticulture training. I'm so sorry, I've got these naughty dogs here. I'd say get as much experience as you can. Go, and I went and worked at a flower farm for 3 months. You know, I went and worked for Charles for 2 summers. Anywhere, you know, if you've got a local market garden, do your RHS practical level 2. It's not the level 2 is good for giving you tips on seed sowing and cuttings, but it's not don't think it's
not vital, is it?
It's not vital, but I think it is really important to be confident in gardening yourself before because if you're failing around children, they're just going to be like, oh, I'm just going to give up. You want to show a confidence, and yeah, I would just get as much experience as possible, just like Dan did. Dan, you know, got in touch with me, came down, and then came and was with Charles for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Yeah,
it's as much about experience as training and having qualifications. So, and don't be daunted by that. If any of you listening have not got any qualifications, don't feel that stops you from doing this. You know, the main qualification you need is the things that Matt was saying, you know, working with young people, talking to them nicely, this kind of thing. So, right, we'll move on to the next question. Another one for Lara. Which veg do you recommend growing with children which are fun and easy to look after?
I definitely think all the veg that they can eat there and then. I'm sure Sarah's probably got some really good advice on this. Obviously carrots, because they pull them straight up and eat them. They love raspberries. They'll just eat mouthfuls of those. Things they love nasturtium leaves, because they're like, oh my, because they're peppery, and anything that they can eat instantly, and also, yeah, just quirky looking stuff.
Cool, thank you. Right, now we have a question for Jess from Margot Greer. Jess, do you get useful feedback from the funders who say no?
Yes, if you ask for it, and that's the key thing. So don't be afraid to write back when you get that rejection letter. Don't forget to write back and say, oh, thank you so much, but can I know why?
Can you give an example?
Oh, you put me on the spot. I think we applied for a big research fund as a school to look at setting up an ARB unit connected to the Cornwall Grows project. And we hadn't defined our research question quite enough. So it wasn't defined enough, but they've asked us to reapply this spring. So it wasn't a dead no, it was just a define it a bit more.
Hang in there. Great.
Hang in
Okay,
there.
next question from Kate Hefferman in Ireland. I work as an artist, writer and gardener. The importance of children's voices is an important aspect of both arts and education. Do any panelists have any example or tips on how children were involved in decision making in their project?
Yeah.
Just dive in if anybody wants to say anything.
We also had something similar with somebody who's asking how you get young children to engage in the garden design and planning in a fun and interactive way.
I can, add my thoughts to that one. So when we first started 5 years ago, we didn't have a farm. So we started working with children at the same point that we were planning the farm. So it was 2019. So we involved them right from the beginning. So the first lesson that we did with the children was soil testing. And then we learnt about pH. Then we learnt about rotation, and we got them to suggest what they would do with the farm. So we used that as co-production essentially, but we were picking out basically just doing all the things that we were doing as farmers and explaining that to the children. And there's also things that I would, if I was to do it again, I would also be measuring biodiversity. I'd be doing, testing the soil properly and doing that with children. There's so much to learn there. And also doing surveys of insects and wildlife. I think that's a really great way to start. And then
you saying so that led them to get interested in the design process as well?
Yeah, I think they we were trying to get them to think about there's so much more to, I know we're on a bigger scale and we're a farm more than a garden, but there's so much more to running a farm than people think. And there's all the business elements of it. We've done lessons around that about, making seed calendars and doing the calculations involved with that. We also set up our beehives with children, and we did maths lessons around that. So I think, they definitely got interested in the planning. I would say we're not trying to make everyone into a farmer. We just want people to understand a bit more about where their food comes from and get this way of seeing.
Right, thank you. Does anybody have any?
I'll just add. I think from my experience, it's about a balance of kind of allowing children to get on with things and actually not being afraid of allowing them to make mistakes, as long as they're not dangerous mistakes. That's incredibly important. But I also mean by a balance is they've got to have some adult input, because these are young people who perhaps don't know anything about growing. So I appreciate that's a tricky balance to get right, because you don't want to be overbearing. It mustn't become the adults' project. It's the young people's project. So, it's about a balance. But I do recommend allowing children to make mistakes, growing carrots too close together, for example, and just that's a talking point for children, isn't it? At the end of the day, these should be practice gardens for children.
Right. Thank you very much.
So just that really rings a bell with me, Matt, because we do a lesson on seed sowing. We always do seed sowing with the children. Anyone who's ever done seed sowing with children, unless you're doing broad bean seeds or whatever, if you're doing smaller things, they will always put 15 seeds in each module. And then it's very easy to do that lesson as a seed sowing lesson and never see those plants again. But we then make sure that we try, and 2-3 weeks later, we do a pricking out lesson, and we come back to those plants, because it's about seeing everything as connected, which is how you grow properly. And I think it's really important to try and think through, you're growing the seed, then what's happening to the plant, then can you taste it, which is not always easy. It depends who you're working with and for how long, but seeing that connectedness, and then that helps them to understand, as you would in a classroom. You would repeat until you've got it, and do it in different ways. The same thing on the farm, and that's how we as growers learn as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, that was something I really took from your presentation, actually. It was just the emphasis on the connection between everything and how food growing, you just go everywhere with it. So we have another question now. This one's for Phil. And what advice would you give to someone who's interested in this kind of thing and who might want to approach their local school? What should they say to the head teacher or the SLT, which I don't know what that means, actually.
Don't know what SLT
Senior leadership team.
Sorry? It's
Senior leadership team.
Oh, cool.
My advice is that, it is crucial. It is to persuade the head teacher, really. That's the core thing, is get them on board, or the governors, as well, and demonstrate the powerful impact of gardening and outdoor learning. And I think it would be relatively unusual in the educational landscape right now to find a school that won't value outdoor learning in some manner. And it's not a buzzword either, but to talk about the impact on mental health and well-being. And if a school hasn't, when we were talking, when Matt was talking about growing help, to actually have help come knocking on your doorstep and offer these things, any head teacher would know that they would welcome that help. So to have somebody turn up and actually interested in developing that in your school, they will probably find themselves a red carpet suddenly appears, and they're very, very welcomely accepted. That's my.
Phil, is that how you overcome the summer holidays problem?
It's a tricky one. What we did this time, I did have a reserve plan, but what I did, I organised a rota of staff to come in sort of twice a week, including myself, around our own vacation time, and we all came in and just went on site and watered up. My plan B was going to be to invite the parents and the families from Gardening Club to actually come, take some produce, do a bit of weeding, water up and go again. There are some obstacles around that, allowing lone worker and access and things, but my approach is if you think can do, you'll make it happen. So that was a strategy we were going to do.
Charles, if I just add to Phil, just because I'm not a senior teacher, I was a junior teacher, and I would say that being transparent with the senior leadership team is really important, and reminding people in the school what's going on by sharing a newsletter is how you get more people involved. So I completely agree with what Phil's saying.
Oh, thanks. Right now,
Can I add? Sorry, Charles. Can I add as well? Because I think that's basically what Grow did. We are in this position because we approached the school and they have accepted us, and we couldn't have done it without them. So I think our approach was to this modelling that I was talking about in my talk. We just went with positive solutions. We brought our own money, we fundraised our own money, and we basically the head teacher, who's incredible and we couldn't have done anything without, basically said to us, we trust you, but don't ask me for any money for the first 3 years. And that's what we did. So we brought our own funding, which for schools who are, teachers are really stretched, they're really busy, they've got enough to be getting on with. Don't give them extra work, and think about ways that you can work with school and understand the universe that is a school. Because for even that SLT is a great example. There are so many acronyms in schools that if you're not in the school environment, you will have no idea of, but you kind of need to learn to speak teacher and to make their lives easier, not add on work, and show them how you're bringing things to the school, not giving them extra work.
Brilliant tips. Thank you very much. Now, a question for Jess from James Freeman. I have a vision of running a monthly gardening club for children. This would be from my own garden. Does anybody have any advice about what insurance and risk assessment I would need?
I think it just goes back to that where I said about if you're going to set up, you need to make sure your paperwork is all in place. So if you are going to do it from your private garden, then yes, there's going to be an element of insurance, public liability, DBS, safeguarding policies, environmental policies. So you really need to, if you want to set up that group, you need to get your paperwork in line first.
Okay, thank you very much. For Lara, and this is an anonymous question, how do you balance reconnecting young people with tactile aspects of nature like soil whilst adapting to sensory issues that young people might struggle with, textures and sensations? Slightly complicated.
It's completely in the children's hands. So if they don't want to touch something, then that's, they don't have to touch anything they don't want to. If you've got some children that just want quiet, so we've got the Quiet Wildlife Garden where they can just go and have quiet time. It's just completely letting the child choose what they feel comfortable doing. And often you'll see, parents might say, oh, my child won't like this, won't like that. And when they come into the garden setting and you just let them find their feet, and often other children will, be their guardian, show them around and make sure that they feel safe. And it's that we always make them feel safe, and yeah, a garden is just like a big hug. It's like it's a lovely place to be.
Great, thank you.
For this, for
Now
Matt,
we have
for
a
Matt, I think,
what?
for Matt, maybe this one?
yeah, well, for anybody
For
actually,
anybody,
but this question is a bit of a what the hell do you do? So from Teng Poon, incredible projects, but what is the best way to help a city school with concrete playground and very little access to green space?
Good question.
Well, I think I've seen all sorts of projects where you can just do the most amazing things in a very small area. You know, using the no dig method, you can sort of virtually put that anywhere. You know, we have come across schools that have an enclosed area and on sort of concrete and tarmac, and essentially sort of building on top of that. I think at the end of the day, seeing is believing. So whatever you'll be doing with the young people, it's very likely they'll enjoy it. So it's not about making it a ginormous project. It's just about creating that positive experience, whatever that is. But it is obviously easier if you've been given a huge piece of land to work on in some respects, but you can create anything to inspire young people in the smallest of areas.
I think it's valuable to say that obviously we think of gardens traditionally as landscape. Well, a garden can be any way. You can go vertical, you can go upside down, you can have a ceiling garden. And I would encourage the children to design that project.
And can I just say, I mentioned the gangster gardener in LA. So he runs his garden from a disused swimming pool. And so it's just all full of containers and, you know, plastic bins that you fill with plants and anything, you know, yeah, anything can be turned into a plant pot. So yeah, check him out because yeah, he's
Brilliant. Thank you, Lara. Thank you, everyone. Now, another very general question. Are there any vegetable varieties related to the learning subjects, such as biology and maths? Actually, Phil, I know that you managed to do this, haven't you, to integrate your garden into the
Yeah, a little bit. It's slightly towards the upper end of Key Stage 2 because we're talking about volume, area, perimeter. We can reinforce those concepts and also ratio and proportion with your composting. If you try hard enough, you can definitely get any area of the curriculum. I believe I noted on one of the plans there they had each subject in individual beds, and I was trying to work that out in my own headers. And yeah, the curriculum can definitely come into the garden, and I think that will be my long-term aim, is to get it more involved in the curriculum. Whereas at the moment, I'm concentrating on making it a really good quality garden.
Great, thanks. Anyone else? All good. Right, we have a question from Angus Lamb. Are there any experiences about facilitating mixed age kids? Our experience in the community garden, the primary school kids are more engaging, but often a few secondary students brought by their parents isolate themselves in a small group on their mobile phones. We try different ways like activities of art to engage them, but it seems not to be working well. Any help? Very welcome.
I can have a go because we do work predominantly with secondary school. I think if it's in, we tend to have, you know, a similar age group coming together, but we do have some of our clubs that are mainly at primary up to year 7. And for the older children, we give them, we offer them positions of responsibility. So they quite often rise to that if they feel like they're almost supporting and looking after the young people. So they're often maybe in year 10, 11, and they've kind of come through programs with us before. So they do know a bit more. And so can you get them helping you almost run the club? And I think often as teenagers that they respond to that. Also, sometimes, you know, you're not going to convince everybody. And sometimes we have loads of hammocks on the farm, which I think the children absolutely love hammocks. And sometimes, you know, we don't actually let kids use their phones unless it's a break. But yeah, just sometimes they'll swing in the hammock for half an hour. And like, if you've done that and you're in green space, we think that's a win.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. And I think Matt has to go in a minute, so we'll say cheerio, but we're actually going to finish in just a minute because we're going to take one more question. And it's, what age do you recommend? Does anybody recommend to start growing with children?
I mean, as soon as possible. Yeah, I mean, you've obviously got toddler, you know, playing in the mud and forest school but I have 4-year-olds coming, and you know, I've got 4 up to 13, and the 4-year-olds just, yeah, they learn so quick and they're so enthusiastic, and yeah, so yeah, it's never too young.
Okay, well, I'm going to sign off now. Oh, and
Just one
Nicola's
last
saying
thing.
something. Oh yeah, just with you speakers, your amazing presentations, are you all okay that we share them with people who on the newsletter, the email that we're going to send out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for that. And yeah, really a big thank you to you all for the quality you brought to this presentation. So if you're still listening, we will be sending you an email. If you're picking this up later, you will get an email with this presentation. You can share it anytime. Thank you very much all for joining. And yeah, I'll just say goodbye also to people watching on YouTube. Thanks for joining too. Cheerio.
Thank you. Bye.